All right, listen, I know you've got a sink full of dishes. You've got a laundry room full of laundry. So do I. One of you guys said last week you dropped a comment, you mowed the lawn. I'm proud of you. All right. So put in your earbuds, put on your headphones, or just lay in bed and relax. Welcome to Mr. Omar's Music Lab, the podcast. I've had an amazing time kind of talking shop with you guys. So this is episode 4. We're going to kind of bookend the first few episodes. This is where we talk about guitar, music, learning in a way that makes sense without hype, no shortcuts, no tricks. Although don't hold it against me if I ever use the word trick in one of my titles. It's just how YouTube works. But I will never pretend that this stuff is easy. It's not. Guitar's hard. So if this is your first time here, I'm really glad you found your way in. You guys definitely, if you want to drop a comment, I want you to reflect on everything I'm going to say here and give us your shot. Give us your thoughts, because that's the part, being interactive, helping each other, okay? So if you've listened to the first few episodes, we've been kind of building an idea here. And today's episode is a really important one. And honestly, it's one I've been excited to record. So let's just dive right into it. But first, this might sound a little odd, okay? But because what I'm going to say, it does sound strange coming from a guitar teacher, but I don't think players need more guitar lessons. Let me repeat that. I don't think guitar players need more lessons, okay? Let that sink in. I think what guitar players need are better systems. And that's basically what we're going to talk about here. So we need ways to organize what we already know. Ways to return to ideas instead of constantly chasing new ones. Again, everything I talk about here, I want you to reflect and think about this, how it applies to you, and hit us back, because you guys all have such amazing stories to share, and I think that's what brings us all together as musicians, artists, creators. So listen, if you've ever practiced a lot, learned a ton, watched endless videos, I mean, here we are, right? And you still feel stuck, which I know a lot of you do. And sometimes I get stuck too. This episode is for all of us. All right, so let's try and understand why this happens, okay? And we need to kind of zoom out and think about how guitar players are learning now, the current world we're in. So we're going to kind of revisit some of these pain points we talked about. Then we're going to go into what I call like building your system, your musical pillars. All right, so why the practice is not translating. So first thing I think of is the overload era, right? So we're living in one of the most information-rich eras for guitar players that they've ever experienced. Now, I didn't have YouTube growing up. My YouTube was rewinding the cassette tape, then the CD a bazillion times and figuring out how to play something, right? But now anything you want to learn, scales, theory, techniques, styles, it's all there. And there's a bazillion teachers on YouTube. You just got to find somebody you resonate with. Hopefully this channel is resonating with you. And it sounds like a gift, but like there's a hidden downside to that, right? When everything is available, then nothing feels essential. And I've said this before, when you have a YouTube channel and you look at your analytics and you see how many people just drop off, I don't take it as a slight. I just realize a lot of them just don't, there's too much. They're probably overwhelmed. You know, they're not making it through the process. There's too, like bandwidth, right? They don't have the bandwidth to process all this information. So every lesson sounds useful. Think about this. Is this you? Every lesson sounds useful. Every video feels worth saving. Every concept feels like something you should know, when in fact, that's just not true. And pretty soon, practice becomes about keeping up instead of going deep. And I keep saying I've really shifted. I've kind of been this way from the beginning as I've built my system, like take something simple and go deeper. That's what, go deep on that. Go below the surface, right? You're busy, but you're not moving. And many times we equate being busy as being productive, but that's just not the case. So like you're learning a lot of information, but are you actually using it? Have you created the system or framework you need to use it on a deeper level? All right. So that is usually when your frustration is going to show up. And I'd love for you to kind of drop in the comments if you feel the need to do so. Like, where does your frustration creep in? Like, just share like a little story. I think that's great for us to hear, because I love seeing these common threads. We're all unique, but I think a lot of these happen to many of us. All right. So listen, and the most important thing to understand here is this: The problem isn't motivation. Remember I said guitar players are not lazy. 9 out of 10 guitar players quit. So if you're here listening, or if you don't play yet, I would love for you to play. I just want you to put in the reps and build your system, which is what we're doing here in this episode. I'm going to give you some ideas. We're going to kind of brainstorm together here and think, reflect, and then we're going to take action, okay? So like another pain point, section 2 of this in my mind would be the collector trap, right? This leads a lot of players into what I like to call the collector trap. And it's kind of what we talked before. We start collecting like information instead of integrating it, okay? I've learned all these scales and these chords, and I learned bits and pieces of this song, but I don't really know how to integrate it into creating music. At the end of the day, it's always about creating music, okay? So scales we recognize, but scales we recognize but don't really hear, right? Chords we know the shapes of, but we don't know how to place them in real music, okay? Because we keep collecting information, but we should actually slow down and go deeper with that. More on that in a minute. Licks, like guitar licks or riffs we save, we screenshot things, we bookmark things, we download things, we print them off, and then we never actually put it into a working context, a musical context. So sometimes I address this in the first episode, like even gear, we're kind of buying gear and hoping that's going to unlock the next thing. When actually, I've totally come full circle with all the gear, and I'm going back to the most simplistic setup because it brings me the most joy because I can concentrate on the music. And listen, none of this makes you lazy because collecting does feel productive. When we're collecting things, we feel productive. It feels like progress, all right? But yeah, that's the problem. Most guitar players aren't practicing. They're not building systems. They're not taking things deeper. They're collecting, right? Because collecting feels great until you actually try to make music, all right? So if more lessons aren't fixing this, the question becomes what actually does. So this is where we got to really start. We're going to pivot into the building the systems part in just a minute, all right? So this is the moment that kind of changed everything for me. I had great guitar teachers. I always wanted to be in a band. That's how I even started playing a guitar. I still remember, I'll just share a really cool story and love you to share your story with like your tipping point. Little shout out to my favorite author, Malcolm Gladwell. Check out his book. I was at a party. There was a band playing. I still remember, you guys ever heard of the band Jane's Addiction? They were playing a song called Had a Dad. The guitar player looked like the happiest human being I've ever seen on planet Earth. And I was like, I want to do that. So that was it. My mom was a music teacher, so she was psyched I wanted to play guitar. I didn't start till I was pretty late. Took piano lessons as a kid, hated it, did sports my whole life, but I was on a mission to be in a band. I was like, I want to do that. Within 2 years I was, and then I ended up touring and making records, and story for another day, another podcast. But, that was a big pivot moment for me. So I had to start building a system for myself. I had to take all that information I collected, and I had to stop asking, what should I learn next? And I have to start asking, like, where does this fit? And I'll be honest, having this channel and trying to teach lessons on here is great for me too, because I have to take a step back. And if I'm going to give something for you to learn, like let's say in another video lesson, I really want to make sure I give you something you didn't have before. All right, so this is the question, like that question alone kind of changes how you practice. Like, what should I learn next? You stop asking that, but just kind of take what you already know and be like, where does this fit? How do I actually make music with this? Right? Because a lesson gives you information, but a system, and this is the key teaching point, or the key theme of this whole podcast, is a system tells you where it belongs, right? So you can keep lessons, or think of it like this, lessons are inputs, right? Input. Everything in this world right now is just input. We've got information flying at us 24/7 from every direction. And honestly, it's pretty overwhelming. But systems are structure, okay? Go deeper. You take your system, I call them musical pillars. I'll refer to that a lot. I'll stay consistent with how I say that. But systems aren't rigid routines or strict practice schedules. They're like return points. Remember we talk about really let's think about this. To get great at something, what does that actually take? It really just takes returning back to it, simple repetition over and over. It's like a loop, right? It's like a circular motion. And every time you move through this loop or this repetitive process, you add tiny variables, not too many, just a little bit to differentiate it a little bit. And you add to your musical catalog, you add to your skill set. That's really what progress is, okay? So we don't look at systems like rigid routines, or they're not like practice schedules. They're return points. That's it. So they're ideas you come back to over and over that keep your playing grounded no matter what you're working on. So a lot of times, even on this channel, when I do video lessons, I will take an idea and I'll do a slight variation of it over and over, because it's important if somebody comes back to watch that, I'm giving them some kind of framework for whatever system they want to use it for. Like, it's up to you to build your system, right? So now we're going to transition into the fun part of this talk, okay? So instead of chasing lessons, I want you to start building systems, and that's what I'm going to share with you right now. Now, again, these are just things that have worked for me. These are ideas for you to, remember I said reflect. Make them your own, figure out how to create your system, your framework. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy deep. So they're not rules. Remember, I like to call them, let's call them musical pillars. I think system sounds a little too formal, but like musical pillars, same thing, okay? Same terminology, same idea. They're ideas you can return to no matter what style you're playing, who you're playing with, or what level you're at. Doesn't matter if you're a day one beginner, 80-year veteran, studio musician. We still have to keep returning to our system and keep growing it, okay? So it's not going to be just a bunch of lessons you're collecting. I don't want you just to hear a bunch of things. And, I want you to go deeper. Okay. So let's go into like musical pillar / system one. So simplicity over novelty, right? Because new ideas always feel exciting. Simple ideas feel boring, but boring just usually means you're close to something musical. So don't mistake, of course, you have to have fun on the instrument. So that's kind of going to be bottom line. That's why most people quit, because frustration sets in because they're not having fun. So trust me, just stick with the process. Building your system is going to give you progress, which is fun, okay? So most players don't need more material. So they need to stay in certain areas longer, okay? To sit with an idea long enough for it to start responding back. Because listen, depth creates confidence. I think that's like a really important statement. Depth, think about this. Depth creates confidence. What does that mean to you? Drop it in the comments, or just listen and get your dishes done. Novelty creates motion, but depth creates music. So for example, what if we did I'm just going to have you do a little visualization thing here. What if we did a G major scale on the 3rd fret, root on the low E? Got to have a real world musical example here. And then you had an E blues scale that's right there. Instead of trying to go in 5 or 6 different positions all over the neck, what if we drilled down deeper just in that 1 3rd fret position where the 2 scales overlap, and then you tried to create variation? This is what I mean about going deeper. So your system there would be taking less is more approach, right? Like you're creating as many musical pieces as you can within that constraint. And that ties back to the last episode. I said you have to put constraints on yourself. That's a perfect example of it. Like, nope, I'm going to stay in this position. I'm going to be as musical as I can here. I'm going to create as many ideas as I can right here. And then I'm going to catalog them. And then I'm going to create variations in my loop, right? My musical loop. Your musical loop being part of your system. So when you stay longer, ideas naturally start connecting. I can't tell you how many times when I put constraints on myself, it forces me, those limitation being of, I can't use the rest of the neck. I have to create as much music as I can right here. It doesn't matter if you're playing a 5-second riff or you're writing like a verse and a whole song. Everything is a little song, whether it's a mini song, it's a part, it's musicality. That's a big word, but I love it. It's you. Your musicality is you speaking. And that's what's going to make it fun for you. That's how things are going to really start connecting. So stay longer, go deeper, and ideas will naturally connect. Okay, let's go to like system, musical pillar number 2. Connection over collection. We talked about collecting earlier. So like music isn't a list of facts. It's a web of like relationships. So you really want to start, when you go deeper, you're going to see how these things connect. And I love kind of that reverse engineering idea of take something you're doing. It could be something, and I've used this example for something as simple as playing a G open chord, the G cowboy chord. Okay. Before you go one step further, ask yourself, what made this thing, the G chord that I'm using? How is this made? What element, where did it come from? Oh, you mean it's made of the notes G, B, and D, which are pulled from the major scale, which is really the blueprint for everything. I was even telling some of my students today how all those little tiny like songs we learn as kids, like, Happy Birthday and Twinkle, they're all like pulled from like the basic major scale. So like just go deeper, like learn little things like that. Like learn how scales relate to chords, like I just said. You can take a scale and build every single diatonic chord in every key from that parent major scale. Maybe you didn't even know that, right? Harmony relates. So how does harmony relate to emotion, right? So when ideas stay isolated, they collapse under real musical pressure. Music isn't about what you know. It's about how things relate. So I want you to try and think about how much you're collecting, but versus how much you're going deeper on. So keep it, less is more. We've all heard that saying, it exists for a reason. This is what I'm talking about. Less is more if you build going deeper into your system. So just think about that, all right? So listen, nothing reveals relationships faster than rhythm, which we're going to transition into our next key point, system 3, musical pillar 3. I say this all the time, rhythm is king, rhythm is queen. Rhythm is the real currency of being a musician, okay? Timing matters more than notes. You ever hear that saying, the space, the best, and you guys know this, all your heroes, musical heroes, drop in the comments how your musical hero does this in relation to what I'm about to say. They know that the space in music is just as important as the music itself, but they focus on the rhythm. Feel matters more than flash. I know, I was guilty of it. When you're a younger guitar player, we're all hypnotized by speed and flash, but then as we grow and improve, we realize that rhythm is everything. And I've said a bazillion times in my lessons, and I'll say it here, tell me how this resonates with you. Your guitar is a drum set, okay? What I mean by that is before you play one note, just rest your hand over the strings and just kick out a killer rhythm where you're just muting the strings and it's like that chicka chicka, like, right? There is nothing better than that. And then when you add in the flowing like the jellyfish, for those of you that aren't seeing the video, there's a beautiful little jellyfish flowing around here. Not real, of course. All right? So rhythm is everything. So you can play the wrong note with great time and people will forgive you. I'm always preaching too. I've tried to show ways like you can't stop the rhythm train. If you get lost, like let's say, here's a good example. Think about this. Tell me if you've ever done this. You're moving through a chord progression. You totally lose your way, or you're trying to go into a new scale you're diving deeper on, of course, right? You're not just collecting that scale, but you kind of lose your way. So what do? You just let up off the strings. You go into a muted string, but you keep that rhythm hand going. You keep it grooving, whether it's by yourself, in your band, whatever you're playing, and nobody's going to notice. The only time anybody will notice is when you completely stop. So never stop. Maybe that's part of your system is to drill deeper on rhythm skills. And I highly suggest that. Rhythm is everything, especially when you're playing by yourself. Nothing's better than picking up an acoustic or your electric all by yourself, and you've got killer rhythm chops, and then you've just got this amazing flow, and you just keep building that system deeper, that musical pillar, okay? But people don't forgive bad time, especially we're our own worst critics. We will not forgive that of ourselves, right? And it's frustrating. But don't worry, it takes practice. It takes drilling deeper. You'll get it. Rhythm creates trust. It makes other musicians feel safe. And safety is musical currency, right, for everybody. All right, so now we want to kind of transition into One of the most powerful things, and a lot of you guys have mentioned this in multiple comments you left on the past few episodes. It's like, I got to put this in. And it's really why I started playing. I mentioned it. Play with other people, right? Listen, you all know somebody that plays, and even if you think you don't, you do. You just got to talk to people, and just maybe it's you and one other person, because music is all about interaction. And I think that's one thing that's lost in our society right now. Tell me how you feel about this. Is not enough of us are interacting with each other and creating music together, because I could sit in this room for the rest of my life and I could do YouTube videos and write songs. But at the end of the day, I started playing guitar because I want to create with other people. I love the push and pull of human interaction. Push and pull of being, how we play. We're not playing to a grid, all right? Which some music is cut to a grid, which is fine. But playing alone, also think about this, it hides your weaknesses, right? You want to expose your weaknesses, and that's a good thing. It's the good old falling down and getting back up, failing to succeed. And you don't even have, just trust me, it's a lot of fun. I know a lot of you are like really afraid to do it. I've just gathered from so many comments I've seen, and just don't be afraid. Find somebody that maybe is on your level. You need to play with people too, even if it's somebody who's really good. Let's say they're technically more advanced than you, then they should be there to lift you up and make you a better player. Okay, it's not a competition. There's no competition here. Every single guitar player, musician, creator, we need to lift each other up and make each other better at what we do. So playing with other people exposes priorities. Suddenly, like, listening matters, okay? You can't just take up all the space anymore. You have to learn how it should always be for the good of the song. That's what made the bands I've played in. And I'm playing in a band now. I'm playing with my friend Max in a duet. I play music with as many people as I can. Like, listening to somebody else and giving them room to shine and you just support them, that's an amazing thing. That's a skill set in itself. When you're in a room by yourself, you can take up all the space, right? It's just like mixing a record. You have drums and a bass player and two guitars and vocals and backing vocals. That's why mix engineers are called engineers, because they have to make space. They have to make room for all that. And a great arrangement does that. So like, space matters, feel matters. So I definitely want you to try and play music with other people. I don't want you to be afraid. Or if you are, tell us why. I'm sure there's tons of people that will listen to this and they're going to be supportive and tell you to just go for it. I know it's always the hardest part is getting started. Listen, my first gig ever with my band, I threw up because I was so nervous, but then I had like the best time of my entire life. And then after that gig, I was hooked for life. So just trust me, play music with other people. And once other people enter the picture, then context becomes everything. All right, so just think about it and keep us posted how it goes. All right, so system 5, musical context over perfection, right? Right notes at the wrong time don't work, right? Perfect technique in the wrong moment doesn't matter. You got to think about the context of where you are. Music is not perfection. Simple ideas placed well sound advanced. You know what? Simple always works. It just does. You know what I mean? And even I know your musical heroes, you've heard a lot of them say, oh, I botched that during the recording, but it was so musical, they just kept it in there. It became a part of the music. And I know a lot of my favorite artists, they all say that, like, keep the mistakes in there. Mistakes are musical, meaning, like, remember what I said? Keep that rhythm train going and people won't even notice. What sounds like a mistake to you will become an integral part of the sound of that piece of art or music that you're creating, all right? So, like, music is not about perfection. It doesn't reward perfection. Music doesn't ask how much you practiced. It just asks whether you've listened. So I really want you to think one of your systems or musical pillars you need to develop is musical context, all right? Always start with a less is more approach. Always start really simple, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked on sessions and we start sandboxing, meaning dumping more and more ideas in, and then we always go back. It seems like 95% of the time we go back, hey, remember what we started at the beginning, the really simple idea that served the song? It just works. Okay, and that's why returning beats advancing. Remember? Returning over advancing. This is another musical pillar. Professional players, the most advanced players, are the players that are progressing the fastest, regardless whether of their level, they are returning constantly. Simple repetition. They revisit the basics over and over. And once you get good at something, you don't move on from it. You keep looping back to it and keep growing it, right? So they deepen familiar ideas. That's a word I've said over and over. Deepen, go deeper, okay? So they take familiar ideas and they go deeper with them. Keep digging down deeper, okay? And it's so much fun. Listen, when you have knowledge, it's empowering, right? When you feel empowered, you're going to be a better player. You're going to progress faster. So familiarity creates freedom. Because why does it create freedom? Because you're fully in the trenches. You went deeper. You know exactly what happens in that little space. Whether it be, let's relate it to the guitar neck, whether it be a little scale that you played down in the lower frets, or you learned how to connect that scale moving up through the neck. You learned how the chord relates to that scale. That familiarity really empowers you as an artist, as a musician, as a creator, as a guitar player. So confidence doesn't come from knowing more. A lot of people want to spout off a lot, but if you actually have them to try and apply it to the instrument, they can't do it, okay? And I don't want that to be any of us, right? So it comes from knowing like what to return to, right? Returning to is just our simple repetition. It's a core part of our musical pillar. It's a core part of our system. And again, I'm just going to tell you, you take these ideas, you make them yours however you want, okay? So last couple ones here, we're going to wrap this up. So curiosity over pressure. This is like a musical pillar or like a system. So like pressure like kills like play, right? Like kills the fun. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like keep that like kid-like curiosity, right? When somebody picks up an instrument, everything is brand new. There's no pressure. You're just exploring. You're having fun. Of course, explore, but then put some constraints on yourself and go deeper, but don't put too much pressure on yourself, okay? Deadlines, comparison, expectations, they shut creativity down. There's a bazillion amazing players you're going to see on YouTube, wherever you consume all that stuff. Don't compare yourself to any of them. Just look at something they did and like you could admire it, but then try and figure out how could I fit that into my system, right? Like don't compare yourself to them. They're not you and you're not them. And that's great. That's what makes music amazing in my opinion, right? So don't let that'll shut down your creativity faster than anything. You're going to start feeling bad about yourself, but again, you're you, they're them, and that's the beauty of this thing. Curiosity keeps music alive, right? Questions last longer than goals. So ask yourself questions, which is really just your reflection process. Again, when I said you kind of come across a new thing you're going to go deeper on, ask yourself questions. Like that's a growth mindset as a human being, as an artist, as a guitar player, as a creator. So the moment the guitar becomes about like pressure, then progress is going to quietly disappear, okay? Let me say that one more time. The moment you let the guitar become about pressure, progress quietly disappears, and then there goes your fun, okay? And those are usually people that quit. Those are the people that are bouncing through 75 videos on YouTube or wherever, and they haven't built their system, okay? So listen, we're going to wrap this up. It's been amazing chatting with you. If you're feeling stuck, it's okay. You're not broken. We've all felt stuck. We're going to feel stuck. But I'm going to promise you, if you build some of these systems or these musical pillars, it's going to help you, okay? So when you feel overloaded, when your bandwidth is just wiped out, these systems are going to help you recover faster. They're going to help you drill down faster, and they're going to help you progress faster. And it's going to make playing more fun, okay? So you don't need like more lessons. Think about what you know already. And I need you to build some systems, build your musical pillars that turn those ideas into music. Again, I'll say a bazillion times. For some reason, I like the word bazillion. Are your dishes done? Did you do your laundry? Have you mowed your lawn? Are you resting? You need systems because you want to make music. That's what it's all about. Music doesn't reward speed or volume. It rewards attention, listening, and return. Okay? And that's what this is all about. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. It's been amazing. I love nothing more than seeing you guys interact with each other. I love interacting with you. So if you've never put a comment on a video, I challenge you now to do so and share your thoughts, share your story. Why do you play guitar? All right. I will see you guys next week in episode 5, and I'm excited to see where we can take this thing. Check out some of the videos and lessons. And listen, I'm here to help all of you, and I want to get better with you. I'm just another guitar player like you that wants to improve and make music. We need more music. We need more creators in this crazy world of ours. All right. So drop jellyfish or your favorite sea creature in the comments. And until the next podcast, I will talk to you then. Peace.